Hello, and welcome to another episode of Empyrion Galactic Survival. And I am going to be working on the guide series today. Today I will be showing useful tips, tricks, tools, and workflow strategies for building ships in Empyrion Galactic Survival. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, isn't workflow strategies a corporate buzzword or something for lectures or professors to bore you with? Well, hopefully not today. I may go into some tangents here and there, but I will at least try to be as succinct as possible and to the point. I'm not a robot. I'm just a I'm just a human being. Lovely human being. At least that's what I put on my tax returns. Anyways, I will be touching on the following topics in this video. Setting up a creative game, creating a workspace that works for you, something where you feel comfortable building that you like, and I will be showing you the options for doing that, as well as an in-depth creative... Wow, I can't speak tonight. I'm recording this very late, so I apologize. I will be showing an in-depth explanation of creative tools that this game offers, as well as practical examples. I will be touching on thruster placement, size class, and some other nice little tips and tricks, so they aren't directly outlined in the description. I will do my best. This will be an in-depth building guide for Empyrion Galactic Survival. A very in-depth one, and it will show on some things that I haven't really seen in videos because they are very new. And I hope you enjoy. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. So, we have the opening menu here. You are going to go ahead and click on single player. Single player, start game, hit creative. This only works for vanilla default game, okay? This method only works for vanilla default creative. There are other methods, but this is the one I'm going to be touching on. So I'm going to hit creative. I'm going to set it up as, I recommend you give it a name so you can distinguish it in the files, because you may have to back up your save files, and you want to make sure that you can find it when you back up your save files, because this game doesn't automatically back up your save files, and you have to back them up externally occasionally. I recommend doing this once a month or more often. Whatever works for you. Back them up on a flash drive, upload them to Google Docs, upload them to Dropbox, do what you want. But back up your games, because it will save you pain and misery and suffering down the line. This game isn't perfect. This is an older game, but I love it. Alright. So, naming it. We are going to name it Bibbly Wobbly Wobbly. Bibbly Wobbly Wobbly Creative. Because that is just how my brain is working right now. And tell me that isn't going to be hard to find in the files. But yeah, you do you. So you're going to go ahead and set that. You're going to pick whether you want an arid planet, you want temperate planet, you want a white canvas, or a temperate orbit. Personally, I like arid planet because I find the lighting on arid planet works wonderfully. I can build on these lakes, which is an extremely flat surface, and I can have gravity if I need it to manipulate gravity and a point of reference. Again, you do you. White canvas is space. This lighting I don't particularly like, but if it's what you like, choose it. You have white canvas, which is just literally water and a white skybox. Very bland, if that's your forte. Temperate orbit. And another option that you can do is the empty world, or yes or no option. Now, if you don't have an empty world and you want this, the benefits of having a station like this, either on a planet, is that it has some It has some LCDs in there with some guide material. Now most of that I'm going to be going over today, so you don't need to worry about that. I'll be going over that anyways, even without this, in my own way. So let's go ahead and get... So that's how you set that up. World seed, most of this doesn't really matter. Most of this you can just ignore, because it's creative. Now I'm going to be loading up my personal creative, because I've already set it up how I want it, and I already have some things on it that I've been using. So let's go ahead and load this up. Now, while this loads, I'm going to touch on a few things. So, if you are a builder in this game, I highly recommend that you find something that works for you. And that's the whole thing. You find what works for you. A shaping style, a color scheme, or a combination of both that you like. When I build ships, I have a specific theme. I have a very specific theme, and it's not immediately apparent because it changes from ship to ship. I'm loading the workshop for some reason. I didn't mean to do that. So when I build a ship, I'm just going to bring up this one because yeah, whatever. When I build a ship, I have a style. Let's actually not bring up that one because it's going to cause some errors in the thing. I have a style, and if you don't know me, that style is a lot of hard shapes. Now, I'll touch on that in a moment. My style is a lot of hard shapes. I don't use curves except when I want to use them as an accent, such as this. I just use these as an accent there. I prefer to have the freaking tankiest thing on the battlefield with a crud ton of guns. That is the GEI style in a nutshell, along with the color scheme. It is a combination of things. It's not just a color scheme. It's not just how I do shaping. It is a combination of all of them, plus the actual style of the build when it comes to, oh, I like to just blow things up, and I like to delete my enemy. I like to have the ability to just say, oh, you have ticked me off, enemy OPV, it's time for you to get deleted. Alright? Find what works for you. If you like to run in a potato, I don't mean a potato in a bad way, I don't mean a negative connotation there. I mean, if you like to literally run in nothing but the blocks that you need to move the ship, such as thrusters, container controllers, container extensions, a generator, a seat, and a warp drive. That bare bones utility with no texturing whatsoever. That is, I applaud you for sticking to your style. I might not think it's aesthetically pleasing, but I applaud you for building, and I applaud you for creating. Now, next point is, don't be afraid to adapt or change. The reason I say this to builders is for the simple reason you take the time out of your day to create. Wait, no. Don't be afraid to adapt and change. And I say this because the game changes. You may get stuck in a mindset where you're thinking everything should work like it does on planet Earth, where a plane should have aerodynamics. And you may get stuck in that mindset. And you may build some beautiful creations. And you will build some things that you are proud of, and you will also build some things that you are not proud of. But don't get stuck in a single mindset. Be open to change, and just wanted to touch on that. And I'm not sure if I touched on that well, but yeah. Another thing that I recommend for new builders is that you look at other ships and take what works and take inspiration from them. See what may work for you or your build. And also try to assess why it works for them to the best of your abilities. Put yourself in their shoes. Why did they make this choice? Try to figure out why they made this choice, and how does that impact you. Just keep your mind flexible and keep your build style flexible, because things will change, and if you don't remain flexible, you can... It can be detrimental to your sanity and just like OCD can. I have a touch of OCD and I fight with it every day. So just, anyways, this is becoming a philosophy course, and I apologize. So next, you want to set up your build space. Now, I personally like planets. I like this big body of water. I like having a landing pad, and I like having the ability to just have it on planets, just because it helps my brain not. It doesn't overtax my brain and thinking, oh, space has no, like, I don't have the extra distraction of being like, oh, what's the reference point in space? Where's up or down? It's just another thing that my brain doesn't have to worry about. So it's why I chose this. It might be different for you. You might prefer building in space where it's a big open area. Not me. But again, do you. You do you. Because it works for you and it allows you to do good work. So create a workflow. Anyways. Now, a neat little trick that I was shown by a Scully, I will show you right now. This is a neat little trick. So I'm just going to put down that. And you go into your paint tool and you select a color on your color palette that you don't use in your build. And you hit a texture, you hit the full block, you hit another texture, you hit another color. And the reason you do this is because your mind, well, once you get a consistency down and once you choose a way of doing this that's to your liking, and I'm presenting this as an option, you will know that that color and that texture is steel. That color and that texture is steel. I mean, it's hardened steel. And then that color and that texture is combat steel. And that texture and that color is Xeno steel. And what you can do is copy that onto your builds, and then as you're doing a hull shaping, again, I don't build like this, as you create a hull, you can see what is steel and what is hardened steel and what block type is what from the outside. And then when you want to go to actually create a ship, then you can simply hit replace blocks, turn it into, say, white or something, and then it'll replace all of that instance with that texture and with that block type and that texture. And then now, I'm not sure if I'm explaining that very well, but those of you that find that little tidbit of information interesting, it works. It's not my style, but it works, and I thought it was worth mentioning. Alright, next. Useful keybinds. And keybinds that are going to save your time, and keybind tips that are going to save you time. Now, if you don't watch any other part of the video, I recommend this part. So, Ctrl Right Click copies a block and its texture. So if you have to have a block on your hotbar and you have to have it selected, then you hit Ctrl Right Click and you can copy anything, whether it's a Xeno steel block, generator, a light, whatever, you can copy it. And then you can copy that block and place it. It is a huge time saver, and when you want to go back to the original block shape that you were working with, mind you, just the block shape, you simply go into the block menu and select the cube. Now, if you want your initial color and texture that you had selected, again, you select the cube, and then you just look at the block that you want to copy, and now I have a white cube again. Now, what if I wanted to remove? What if I wanted to remove the texture completely and get the steel blocks back? Well, I just drag it on my hotbar and put it back on my hotbar, and now I have that gray steel block again, the original texture of the block. Very, very simple time saver. Now, next we have the remove block, and I'm going to show this with symmetry plane just because it works in symmetry plane and you will need to see that. So if you want to remove a block on the other side, if you want to remove a block, you can simply hit Shift Right Click and that removes blocks, and then you can continue to hit right click while you depress the Shift key to repeat the process. Alright, and then you have your undo and then redo buttons. Typical standard stuff. Very, very simple. And then I'm going to turn off symmetry plane, and I will touch on symmetry plane again in a minute. Now, let's go ahead and touch on symmetry plane. So, symmetry plane is a useful tool when you want to use symmetry. Now, first you set one plane. Now, I recommend doing this to start. You set one plane, and then because this ship is symmetrical for the most part, I can also, from this single block in the very middle, set this one. Now, one thing to remember is not all ships will have a single block that is the middle point of the ship. Some of them will have two blocks instead that are right beside, and in that case, I refer you to this tooltip. Take a look at this tooltip here. Tick checkbox to activate. Point at a block on your base or ship. Click left mouse button to set the symmetry plane where you want it. Center plane on block, which is where it is now. It's on the very center of the block, or you can go to the edge of the block, and it allows you to do that. As you can see, that is now on the very edge of the block right there. I don't want that personally, but it is very, very helpful. And then you just look at it, make sure it's set properly, depending on whether your block is an odd number, whether your build is an odd number build or an even number build. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the symmetry planes. And you can toy around with those. Now you can have all three of these activated at the same time, but in order to set all three of them, you will want to set two planes first, and then you will want to deselect them, and then go to that plane, and the third plane, and move that third plane individually with the other two unchecked. And then once you have that third plane where you want it, you can then recheck those symmetry planes, and that is how you set all three symmetry planes. Now remember, turning that checkbox off will also turn off all the symmetry planes. If you leave it on, you can turn off the symmetry planes individually. Quick little time saver. On to the next. Now, I am going to moving on to thrusters on a build. So, where you place your thrusters impacts how maneuverable the ship is going to be, on top of what size of thrusters that you use. So if you want to get extra torque, such as roll, yaw, or pitch, your thruster placement counts. Now, in an ideal world, and in a perfect physics world, a cube would be king. In other words, you would have thrusters on every single corner of the cube. To an extent, that works here, but there are some peculiarities with the Unity engine and in the Empyrion game, and I will show you those peculiarities and how to take advantage of them. So as you notice on this build, the forward and the back thrusters are, as you would expect, as far out as you can get. Well, at least the back one is. And I put these here because there was only space there, but they are as far out. Carrying on. They're as far out from the center line as I can get them feasibly, with the internal space and placement. And that is good to think about when you're building a ship. That is why there are wings here, and this is why there are these things in the back that are angled. Now, as you can see here, these thrusters are a little bit further back, and they cause a little bit of a jutting out point there to accommodate them. Why is that? Well, it turns out that having your side-to-side thrusters and up and down thrusters behind the center of mass, or as close to the center of mass as possible, benefits you. Now, let's take a look at a fully completed ship, or a fully put together ship at the moment. Will you let me place, please? Thank you, game. Sorry, I'm near the equator, and that's why that's happening. As you can see here, you can actually check what the center of mass is by going to the debug menu. showing center of mass. As you can see, the majority, all these thrusters are behind the center of mass, thus giving me a little bit extra torque. That is the center of mass right there, that blue dot. This is the center of the ship, that is the center of the mass. And almost all of my thrusters are completely behind that. Minus some decoy thrusters up front and the forward-facing thrusters. Now, that gives me a little bit more maneuverability than I would have otherwise because of the amount of torque that gives. So, show center of mass tool to see that, and if you can build with that in mind, you can get just a little bit extra torque and maneuverability out of your ship. Hope you found that useful. On to the next. Now, firing angles. As you can see with this ship, I have made some interesting choices with where turrets are. Up front here, they're upside down. That is ideal when you have a ship in front of you, say that's the enemy ship. Because all of these turrets have firing angles on them. So the way this particular turret model right here, this plasma turret model works, is that, let me find another one that'll work. It has very limited turret depression below, notwithstanding that this one's blocked a little bit. But it has unlimited rotation, and it can go up to about that angle when it's aiming up, and when the turret is aiming up. So that is why these are reversed and pointing inwards, so up for this turret is pointing towards the very center. And that is why they are on the wings right here. And the same with they are right here, is they can point towards the target in front very, very easily. So you have a firing line there. So when you're building a combat ship, or any ship for example, keep that in mind. Now, another peculiarity of this build is that I have these turrets sort of recessed a little bit. They can fire a little bit, but they are recessed there. Now, you might be asking, why do you do that? Doesn't make any sense. Well, turns out there is thought behind that, and here's my thinking. These turrets, when an enemy ship is in front, an enemy ship is going to have to dig through these blocks to get to that turret. And that acts as an active decoy. Not only that, but this is a decoy turret. This acts as sort of a dual usage decoy between a decoy turret and a actual turret that's meant to take down enemy shields. So the turret is a little bit protected, but again, when you're far away and you're still closing in on the target, this turret is going to have less of an issue shooting that enemy. But as it gets closer, the enemy is going to be at a disadvantage. And this one is just a decoy. This is just going to be drawing enemy fire so that when the shields do go down, or if the shields do go down, the enemy will be targeting that. And it's, on some servers, you have a no bunkered turrets rule. Turrets should not be bunkered. In other words, they shouldn't be inside the ship in the internal decoys, or they shouldn't be like right here where they are almost blocked off from all firing angles and then backaways. That is considered bunkering to some people. It's a case-by-case basis for most admins on servers. But anyways, instead of doing bunker turrets, I did a little bit of cleverness here to use this as a turret that's meant to be sapped, I guess, by taking nose damage. So it's firing angles, touched on that, as well as decoys in some sense, and some clever building mechanics and clever usage of the game mechanics. Alright, moving on to the next one. Now, I will be having an upcoming video for a dedicated video covering all of the decoy, how to use decoys, how to make decoys, building a combat ship for redundancy and endurance. I will be touching on those topics exclusively, the related topics exclusively, in an upcoming video. Subscribe below, if you would like to be notified of that, or join the Discord. Shameless plug there. Moving on. Quality of life building tips for builders. I see a lot of builders putting a lot of RP into their ships, and RP isn't a bad thing. But what really turns me off as somebody that actually uses other people's builds occasionally is I hate rat runs. If I literally have to travel through all the RP rooms to get into the cockpit seat, and it literally takes me 30 seconds to get to the cockpit seat, and or to get to the pilot seat, then I am going to go into that build and I'm going to rip out as much of that as possible just before I can even use the thing. So please, please avoid using rat runs and include quick access to the bridge. That way, if you're under fire, you can get back into the ship very, very quickly. And I incorporated that very well here. You have a blast door here. Close, please. You have a combat steel block above it. You have a xeno steel block above it to keep it airtight. And then you have, on the inside, you have a force field. And on the outside, you have a force field. So you have a blast door, a force field, and a force field, and it's airtight. And that is literally right behind the bridge. I love builds that do this, that think about this. There are some Artemis Rouge builds that do this. There are some other builders that do this. Like Don, for example, hates rat runs as well. Don 2K7, he hates rat runs. We agree on that. You should be very, very quickly and very, very easily able to get to the ship. As you can see, that back entrance, you have to navigate around a few things. But right here, very, very simple. And additionally, if you want to get to the very bottom of the ship while you're in space and you don't have gravity, you just simply go through these holes in the floor. Now, when you're on planets and you want to get off quickly, think about having a bug out seat and some medical right there. So you have full medical right here. As soon as you get in the ship, you have the ability to take off and get the heck out of Dodge right there. And for being on planets, you have a elevator. Now, elevators are notoriously buggy in space, so you want to put them, at least in my opinion, at the very back where you're not going to interact with them very much, and they're not in the way. That way you have this close at hand. Because in space, you don't need gravity. It's great. Alright? Just a few things to keep in mind. Also, I'd like to ask you a question. Do you need a grav gen in space when you're playing a game? Or in real life, there are some... I'm talking about actual real life. There are some problems with not having gravity. Loss of muscle mass, things like that. Loss of bone density, having to do exercise every day. This is a game. You don't need a gravity generator in space. Think about it. Do you need a gravity generator? They cause more issues than they do cause benefits, because if you have a gravity generator and a ship like this, and you have an elevator, you are going to be coming out of this elevator at a wonk. Or if you have somebody that's parked their ship and not owed it out nearby, near a base, you are going to have an extremely hard time navigating ships because of if you turn your jetpack off because of the thing. Or even if you have your jetpack on, it's even worse with these elevators. So, I ask you this question. Do you need a grav generator on your ship? It's extra CPU. It's extra power draw. It's extra passive power draw. Do you need it? It burns fuel. Do you even need it? And do you want to take the time to set up a signal logic switch to turn it off and on? Do you need a gravity generator for a spaceship? Okay, just gonna leave that comment there and move on to the symmetry plane. Or I'm gonna leave that question there. Alright, so next we have the selection tools in symmetry plane. Now, I have covered the symmetry plane, so I won't cover that again. But we have the selection tools and a few things that you need to know about them. So, quickest time saving addition is the Ctrl+Shift+A keybind. Now, I just selected one block in this part of this chunk, and I hit Ctrl+Shift+A. Now, I can hit Ctrl+Shift+A again and select the entire blueprint. Ctrl+Shift+A once to select a chunk, and Ctrl+Shift+A twice to select the entire blueprints. lifesaver, time saver, and arguably sanity saver. Thank you, Elion, for the addition. Alright, so Ctrl+Shift+A. Next, we have the copy and paste tools. Now, whether you use copy or you use the cut tools, you copy or cut once, and then you paste twice. So you paste the first time, you move it to where you want it to go, then you move again to make sure that is exactly where you want it to be, and then once you're sure it's exactly where you want it and it's not going to cause any other issues, you hit paste the second time. Cut or copy once, paste twice. Alright, keep that in mind. And I'm going to go over this one more time to drill it in. Ctrl+Shift+A. I'm going to use cut this time. I'm going to paste it, because the first paste, with the first pasting of it, it's not corporeal. It's interactable with the tools, but it's not corporeal. It's not actually there. So again, you paste it once, then you assess where it is, make sure it lines up with what you want to do, and you paste again. Simple. And then you can hit Ctrl+Shift+A again to select that chunk. Cut, paste, move, assess, make sure that it's in the right place, which it is not for whatever reason. As you can see, it wasn't exactly lined up, and I needed to make sure that it was lined up. Paste it for the final time, and then repeat the process. I'm not gonna voice it this time. Just gonna let you watch. There we go. Look at that. Ships back together. Now, why did I do that? It wasn't only to show you copy and paste. It was to show you the process and a quick little look at the internals. Alright, so that is copy and paste. Now, you might be wondering, why did you cut this thing up? There has to be another reason other than show you the copy-paste function. Well, in fact, there was. I wanted to show you how I do armor, how I do, what is it called? Internal chain reaction resistance. Now, on my workshop page, I like to advertise my ships as chain reaction resistant, and that is because they truly are. I take time to make sure that components are separated by steel. So, like, I just said like, and I sound like a freaking millennial. For example, there is steel in between certain groups of... Actually, I'm going to go to the other one real quick because it hasn't been butchered by copy and paste. So as you can see here, I have clusters of explosive things like fuel tanks. Now, you might be wondering, Akeva, why do you have fuel tanks in the nose? Why? Well, first of all, they're separated by steel into groups, and I have them there because when you are nose tanking damage, you want to have an indicator of when you should pull back before a critical component starts getting damaged. So as soon as these go, I'm just like, okay, get the heck out of dodge. As soon as these ones right here start going, I'm like, get the heck out of dodge. Alright, and then you just put steel in between fuel tanks to keep them from chain reacting. It's very, very simple. If you have the room to do it, please do it. Now, another way to prevent chain reactions is here in the warp core room. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and place a warp core. I don't know why it didn't show up. Game be gaming. Give me a moment here. So, why is there... You might be asking, why is there open space between the warp drive and a CPU component? That seems dangerous. Well, to an effect, it kind of is. Now, it's not as dangerous as you may think, because... Let me get the debug gun out here. And you're probably wondering what this has to do with the current topic at hand. Just bear with me. Warp drive, if this goes boom, it's going to slightly damage that. It's not going to damage the core because well, I'll get back to that in a second. So, you may think that when this goes boom, because there's a gap here, that you can see that it's going to damage this extender. It will not, and here's why. Because when damage is calculated, this isn't a half block, this is a full block. When the damage calculation is going on, this is a full block. Let's go ahead and explain it. Alright, so, I just blew that up. That took damage. Huh. Color me wrong. Okay. I have just been proven wrong, and I am at a loss for words. Stand by while Akeva reboots. Okay. Moving on. So the thinking is, when this happens, why isn't there more damage here? Well, this took the majority of the damage. It blocked a lot of damage. See how this one took more damage than that one did? It blocks a lot of damage. And I didn't want to just put a block there because I needed to move around the ship and get around the warp core. So when I'm coming through this quick access hatch, pardon me clipping into things, I like to be able to access these things, and I need space between me and the actual warp core. There isn't enough space here for that, but it is what it is. And so, as you can see, the core took a little bit of damage too because there's open space here. Now, how could we address that? Because that is a problem. How could we address that? Could we put a full block over it? Or could we put something so that it will never take any damage? Well, yeah, we could do that. Or, I could just do this. Now, I'm going to show you a cheeky little command that, help regenerate. And as a builder, this will help you too. Alright, regenerate, so I'm just going to type regenerate. I'm just going to hit enter because I need to do one other thing. Hit DI, that turns on debug info. That third line, far left, third line down, far left is ID equals. That is the number that you're looking for. Regenerate ID, which is 1210 in this case. Simple. And, now, Aurora V Demonstrator. Put that there, hit enter again. Again, yes, I know. Now, I am going to then go into my blueprint factory, rename this, but not actually rename it. Hit Ctrl C, copy that name, cancel, exit out of that, reopen the console, type in Ctrl V, that puts that there, and type in that, and that has been replaced with no damage stats. Now, I have to put the warp drive back in because, well, it didn't have a warp drive in the blueprint, so it just restored it to the factory blueprint. So let's go ahead and put the warp drive back in. No, I don't want a ventilator. Alright, so I have the warp drive there. That's going to cause damage, but it's not going to cause catastrophic damage if it goes. So what I can do is if I wanted to, I can just simply put a block here. Oh, wait. No. Well, that's fine. But I could simply put a block like this here. Alright, let's go ahead and grab a texture with the Control Copy. Again, this works with the color tool as well. And let's make sure not to repaint that texture everywhere because we don't need to do that. And I'm just going to choose glowy for the life of me, just because I want to. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save this Alt-O and override that just so that when I do the regenerate command, it will regenerate that. Alright, boom. That went. And you just put a deco block above it, and the core now takes no damage. However, this block took a little bit of damage. So, neat little thing to think about. Using shapes as armor against chain reactions. Something neat to think about there. Alright, moving on. Let's just do that again. There we go. And the changes that I have made didn't stay. Didn't stay because you have to restart the game for that blueprint to update and for it to call up that updated blueprint. But it is what it is. Now, turn off DI again, because I don't want that in the video. And DI just gives you debug information, including, well, actually, help DI. Let's have it tell me. Toggle display, and you have these other options. Yeah, I have all these other options, and so it gives you your player position at that top line. It gives you your player level, the amount of XP on the player, the player ID, which in this case is 1001, because it was I believe the first or second thing to be created. No, second thing to create. The world that it was on was the first thing to be created. The starter planet was the actual starter planet itself was the first thing to be created. You have the ID, and then you have the ship's name on that third line, and then I don't know what that information past the ship ID is. No idea what that information is. Then you have the ship's position, the BP name, which can be different than the actual spawn name. BP equals Aurora the Demonstrator. You have the hull block. You have the block that you are currently looking at, which in this case is changes based on where my cursor is there. That's the block you're looking at, as well as some additional information that I don't understand behind that. I only understand the block ID number 1786 and then the / is the separator, hull extended large. And then the 422 and everything behind that, I've been playing this game for years. I have no idea what that information means, and it's never come up. And it's never been helpful to me, so it's probably some additional information for the developers that they understand, and I'm not fussed enough to ask. I say ask questions all the time, but it is what it is. Alright. Now, you're probably wondering, Kiva, why are you on a tangent? Well, I just got a message from my marketing director, and she, Vanessa here, is, well, a bit insistent. She's on my other line at the moment. Vanessa, how many times do I have to tell you I will not support, I will not support Empyrion. Empyrion support groups for builders that do too much building, because I love building in this game. I won't support. I'm not gonna promote Empyrion Aholics Anonymous anymore. Come on, not after last time where it turned into just a bunch of us talking about build tips, and we just never talked about trying to get away from this game. No. I love this game. It's Legos in space. I get to build. I get to create. I get to talk with people. I get to show people how to do things. I'm not supporting Empyrion Aholics Anonymous anymore. Okay? Stop pestering me about that. Okay. Carrying on. What was I going to show you next? This is why I write things down. Now, we have touched on, you know what? Not even gonna do it. I'll do that in the description. I am losing the plot here because it is so late at night. It's like 12 o'clock right now, and I need to go to bed. But I need to finish this video. So, clip notes. Shift right click to remove blocks very quickly, and only works in creative. Ctrl right click to copy a block, its texture and its color, and even if it's a thruster. Clearing and cleaning something that you have copied. Just drag it out of the hotbar. Avoid the rat run when building a ship because, well, it can get you killed when you're trying to get back into your ship after you have mistakenly not looked at your surroundings and you're panicking to get back in your ship, and your ship is exploding all around you, and by the time you get to the cockpit, the ship's been blown up, blown to smithereens, or has taken so much damage that you just want to cry. Avoid the rat run. Have quick access to the bridge. Avoid elevators because elevators can quite literally be turned into a freaking pinball machine, alright? Let's avoid elevators and ladders, please. Just please. Or at least if you need to put them on a ship, put them out of the way. We have gone through copying and pasting. And I have hopefully drilled that into your head. Or into your brains. Excuse me. Oh right, we have not touched on the duplication and propagation tools. Now, this is something that is new. It is very new, and I would like to show you this. So, say you wanted to expand this landing pad, but you only wanted to, or you wanted to expand something that is very, very small and duplicate it so that you didn't have to continue to texture and place blocks over and over. Well, fear no more. There is a tool for that. There is a tool for that. So say that you wanted this entire shape here to be the size of this landing pad. Well, that's not as hard as you think. Simply do that. Why are you not behaving? Oh, right. That's another glorious way of rotating things very, very quickly. You can actually rotate things quickly by simply copying once and pasting once. So say that you wanted something to be flipped over, but you didn't want to go through the hassle of using the rotate part and then having to move it so it's oriented correctly again. Well, just use the scale selection tool and paste once. Really cool, right? Well, that's not all. If you act now, if you act fast, you will get with no additional charge another paste function, another function of this. What if you wanted to duplicate this and make a large landing pad very, very quickly? Well, look at that. You now have a perfectly symmetrical landing pad that is now twice the size with only 4 simple clicks. Anyways, keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind when you use that tool. So, for example, I'm just going to delete this and provide another example. So I'm going to go with the selection again. I'm going to pick up a piece of this ship again. I know we've touched on this already. We've touched on the selection. Now I'm going to go through the process of doing this way because it's just going to be easier. Alright, so I have this piece here, and I want to use, I don't want that center piece, and I want to do this very, very quickly. So I'm going to copy that, paste it, pull it forward, and then paste again. Next, I'm going to go to the scale selection tool, and now I just, instead of having that middle piece, I now have this. And I can use this piece. Why didn't it grab that texture? Well, there's still some problems with it. Who am I kidding? Symmetry plane tool has never been perfect. But now I have something that I can just take and put on another ship very, very quickly. And I can use that to duplicate. Isn't that freaking cool? I'm sorry, I'm gushing over a feature that it is what it is. Alright. Now, there are a couple of problems that you need to be aware of when using the copy and paste tool. So I'm just going to grab another ship here. Let's not do that one. Let's use something very, very simple. That is not simple. Give me a minute here while I am, there we go. No, that's New Dawn. I want, where is it? Tool turret pack. Hold on. Give me a second. I'm tired, as you can probably tell. Apparently it's not in my library anymore. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna do something very, very simple. So, say you wanted to... Okay, that is a horrible example. In the meantime, I'm going to show you a nice another little trick. So you can delete a ship very, very quickly without even opening the console. Arguably, since they changed the way the destroy function works, it doesn't save time. But you can very, very simply do that. It's very, very cool to do that. Now, back to my original point. Let's just do something else. I'm gonna go ahead and spawn this over here. This is something that I use to create something. So, if you go over here and you take your color tool to it, you will notice that there is a color palette here. And on this one, it's a different color palette. Now, you can do what I just did there and copy the color palette over here. Like that. Well, that didn't actually work, did it? Come on. Whatever. You use that process to copy. I've got a dedicated video on that. I'm not going to try and show you how that works right now. But the reason I want to show you this is because if you take this, I'm just going to copy the whole ship because I'm a nutter. Let's turn off console on exceptions just in case I'm doing something stupid, which I probably am. And I'm going to paste this. I hit copy instead of paste. Great job, Kiva. So, Control-Shift-A, copy, turn selection off, and then, now, wow, I must be tired because that just didn't work. So, I'm just going to explain this, and I'm not going to use a practical example for this because I have failed miserably in that task. Go ahead and leave a clap emoji in the comment for me failing miserably with that. Okay, anyways, when you copy a ship to another blueprint, it copies the shapes, but you may have an issue where the colors don't match up. And because I'm using these colors, and I am so miserable at my job, it doesn't really matter. But the colors will not match, and so if you have a color such as this blue here, if the color palette doesn't match the other one in that same slot, then you're going to have to recolor it. So it is much more advised when you're copying a piece from one build to another to have the same color palette, or things happen. And well, yeah. Alright. Now, we are coming to the end of the video finally. I am thankful for this because I am getting tired here. Now, there are some cliff notes for size class, and I will be going through them right now. So, things that drastically affect size class are as follows. Number 1, lights. Number 2, glass. And number 3, truss blocks. And deco blocks. Deco blocks are this category. Not that category, this category. So things like radar, antennas, furnishings, plants, consoles, and tech equipment. Things like that. That is considered decoration. These have a huge impact on size class, so use them sparingly. Alright, just a quick little heads up. So try and use them sparingly on, if I haven't made that abundantly clear. Now, remember, communicate with your fellow creators. Comment on their workshop items, be specific on what you found interesting or helpful, and make sure to build them up as a creator, because how you act to other people is how they will treat you for the most part. It's karma. Or be kind to your fellow humans. Alright? Now, I ask this because I try and improve and do this every time. I try and build other creators up because it is just makes the it makes the community better as a whole. Please make this community better as a whole. Now, another key thing for new builders and veteran builders is never assume you know everything. Never assume that you know how something is going to interact with something else, because things change and you forget things, and somebody might find a better way of doing something, or a more time-saving way of doing something. If you worked anywhere, you'll understand this, but I would just like to reiterate that. Remember, be willing to change your way of thinking. There are game updates that do paradigm shifts, that cause paradigm shifts, and this is especially true with scenarios. So if you get stuck in one way of thinking, just be open to change. It's wonderful. It will help you out in the long term. And remember, have a good day. Be kind to your fellow human, and your fellow humans, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful time. And I want to say thank you to my lovely patrons for all that you help, all that you do, and for being part of this lovely community. Thank you. You help me create better content, and I try and put every dollar that you contribute into something that further allows me to create better content. Thank you for watching. Banshee out.